so this is one of the most detrimental parts of that for me, because in that time when I was like, oh my gosh, Tommy's a narcissist, and that explains so much, I was like, our marriage is now over because everything I found says a narcissist can't change, and having a real relationship with is impossible, and they'll always just think about themselves, and this is just how it's gonna be. And I remember the therapist going, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but they're a narcissist. Well, he's a narcissist, and there's just no hope.
Like, we already had a lot of mistrust. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Affairs and like a combination of like abuse, like like the physical abuse and then lies and stuff and other things, and then you add these labels on top of it, and it added a whole new level of mistrust and lack of hope. So what it boils down to is this is the truth, and we're gonna give you how to fix this. But the truth of it is, hey, welcome back to the Marriage 2.0 podcast. So today we're going to talk about labels and realistically how people in their marriage and even people externally use them to label their spouse and how that affects them. And we're also going to talk about our story and how we dealt with this too.
Yes, and stay in, because at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to debunk what these labels are, how to overcome them, and what to do if you've been labeled some of these things. Because we've been there, we've experienced it, we've seen it with so many people, and we know how detrimental labels can be. And right now in society, labels are so common. I bet as we go through this list of labels, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've heard that one, and I know someone this one and that one, going through, because they're thrown around in our society so much today.
Yes. So you're like, what labels are you talking about? Well, we're going to tell you. So these are primarily you got labels like people kind of label their spouses in their own personal labels. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is realistically things like narcissism, being a narcissist, a covert narcissist, an overt narcissist, a manipulator, toxic, emotionally unavailable, those types of things, essentially.
Yes, and things like bipolar or borderline personality disorder. There's different types of attachment styles that are thrown around as well.
That's super popular right now.
That I think that and narcissists are some of the most common. And then very controlling. Oh, they're controlling. And controlling a lot of times often goes along with the narcissist as well. And then you have, they're abusive. And so abusive used to mean just physically, they would beat you up, abusive. Yeah. But now people are like, they're abusive. They're verbally abusive. They're mentally abusive. They're emotionally abusive. They're financially abusive. There's so many different parts that people dive into on those as well.
Yeah. You got codependent, people pleaser, sex addict, and we could just go on, to be honest. I mean, there's so many different ones, but for the sake of time, in your day, we're going to uncover these.
Yeah, so these are going to be some of the biggest ones, and mainly because one, they're the most common that we see. Yeah. They're the most common that are thrown around in society, and we actually experience most of these as well. Even in the ones that technically we didn't have the label, we underlying did, right? There was so much into these. And so as we go through, we want to hear from you, have you been labeled any of these things? Or did you grow up with a parent with one of these as well?
Yeah. And so for the record, in our story, you'll see us talk about how there was financial abuse, emotional abuse. So those aren't labels though, the way that we're talking about it. The way people do it here is you're a financial abuser.
Yes.
You're a verbal abuser. You're an abuser. That's one super common one just thrown around. They're an abuser. Mm-hmm. So there's we went through things, everything there is possibly to go through a marriage minus death, pretty much with kids and stuff. Thank God. But but as far as pretty much everything else we went through, so we understand it. And as you listen to our podcast and watch it and stuff, you'll understand wow, these people have really been through this, and wow, they've been through a lot. Yes. So let's dive into it. So the first thing I want to talk about. And we're just going to talk. We're going to dive into these in a minute and kind of go through them, but in a more in-depth way. But first, what I want to do is I want to talk about these as it relates to our story. So this is something the Holy Spirit has told us to talk about, so we're excited about that. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about narcissists, and then we'll kind of group these into together. So you got covert, overt, and we'll talk about them individually in a second. But we were labeled narcissistic. Now, my story with this is a little bit different than Desnekka's.
100%.
I was labeled by her eventually, I don't even, it was at some point during our hell, narcissist. I don't know where she got it from. we'll probably figure out today.
Well, I'll share that. I'll share my side here in a moment. You can focus in on what you went through.
But I was labeled that, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I've heard it, because you hear it in society, but I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna look it up to see if this is what I really am. Then I'm going to look it up to see what I need to do to fix it. That was my first kind of like go-to. And then when I go to look it up, I'm like, I'm downloading all these books and like podcasts and like YouTube videos. Well, not really podcasts. I didn't listen to podcasts back then as much, but YouTube videos and like books and stuff. So many different things. And I was like, man, like, wait a minute. I thought I was the one that's narcissist. She's the narcissist.
Yes.
And she's a covert narcissist. Everybody believes that she's amazing and she's on cloud nine and all this stuff. And I'm the problem. That's what they do. Look right here. It says it in this book right here. And so I was convinced that she was covert. I think she was convinced that I was overt, maybe. I'm assuming.
Just straight narcissist.
Yeah, just straight. That's basically the same thing.
Yeah, just like, straight narcissist.
Yeah. And so we went through these things. But yeah, that was our experience. And I went out and had I told, counselors and therapists and stuff like that. And then of course, friends and family and friends, whatever, family and stuff like that. This is what's going on. I figured it out. I came to this conclusion. I was excited about it. I was like, this is why. This is why. I justified it as I'm not crazy. She's actually the problem, which I was like, this is what's really going on here.
So you can see, obviously, this label is not bringing unity or restoration. And on my side of things, by the way, it was so incredibly frustrating when he came back and was like, no, you're a narcissist. And I'm like, oh, look, you're being more victim because that's what narcissists do. They always flip the table. So now we're in this huge battle about, and guys, we laugh now. In Hell on Earth, it's not funny.
It was painful.
And you feel crazy. You're sitting there questioning your sanity and what is wrong with you. And when you're seeking for these things, it's not because you're a bad person. It's because you were looking for an answer. Why? What is going on, right? And so that's why you have to be so intentional to where are you gaining your information from? Because if it's of the world or people who aren't healed, then they're just going to be giving you band-aids and false information and leading you astray, which is what we went through, right? The counselor and the therapist. So counselors have to be very cautious about how they label, but the therapist, because they diagnose and they give medications, they can be more direct. And when someone is labeled a narcissist, one of the biggest problems is a narcissist is someone who does not change as according to society. They're like, oh, that person, they're going to be incapable of having a relationship.
There's more to it than that,
for sure.
But that summary, that was her. Yeah.
And so this is one of the most detrimental parts of that for me, because in that time when I was like, oh my gosh, Tommy's a narcissist, and that explains so much, I was like, our marriage is now over because everything I found says a narcissist can't change and having a real relationship with is impossible, and they'll always just think about themselves, and this is just how it's going to be. And I remember the therapist going, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but they're a narcissist. Well, he's a narcissist and there's just no hope. I was like, what? And so we were so told to just divorce because it was so hopeless. And then when someone,
you're a victim of your circumstances. You just drew the one lucky lottery number. It's
of the narcissist.
Yeah, it's amazing how so many people are labeled narcissists today.
It's and so feeling hopeless because I was like, I want to restore my marriage. I want things to be better. That's why I'm seeking answers. I want to have a real solid, I want to overcome this. And it was everything I found was so hopeless and so defeating and so defeating. And along with narcissists come all the gaslighting and the manipulation. And so then those terms are thrown around where we couldn't even have a conversation. And then with him studying narcissists too, and then being a quote unquote narcissist at the time, it was he was throwing the gaslight, and I would say something. He's like, "You're gaslighting me." I'm like, "No, that's what you're doing to me." So
so stupid. Sorry, you're not stupid. I'm sorry.
Our cycle was dumb.
It was just ridiculous. We went through this, this cycle of things, and we had each other labeled professionally, whatever you want to call that, professionals. By the way, don't go to a counselor. We'll do a whole episode on counselors. It's a complete waste of time, or therapist or psychologist, any of that stuff's a waste of time. But when it comes down to it, like, we went to these things, we got each other labeled, and then we had all these proof, we had all these books. And not only that, like, so you had professional, like, proof, we had our personal justifiable truth, and then you had like the other truth, which was like friends, family, stuff like that. That was like, oh wow. Now my family was like, huh, interesting. But it was like, but I had friends that were like, wow, yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, like, you know, like,
Yeah.
Maybe there is no hope, you know?
This is why you have to go back and listen to the last episode that we did about, standing for your marriage that everyone was against. It's just like so important, right? Like, so that's so big. But like, this was, the narcissist was one of the biggest things that went into our marriage. And then it was like the covert narcissist. And then and then Tommy was like, yeah, I have PTSD from you.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's what comes from a covert, like, man, there's so many labels out there. Like, you have a label for this, for that, for this, for that. Then this has a label for that label. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I had that's so ridiculous. I had PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, little c, from a covert narcissist.
Yeah.
Like, and there's whole books out there. There are groups, literal groups, like forms. I don't know if those forms still exist, but because that was
don't go to them, by the way. Don't start searching them. They're not beneficial.
There is like these recovery like type situations and these professionals that help you recover from the abuse from it, and like then you got to like take time to get out of this situation and like redevelop your identity and all these like crazy things. Then they try to come back to you, and it's like, dude, like, wow, there's so much. Like, we went through all of this.
And so let's talk about like, because this the narcissist led into the manipulator, and so we were, it was very like, you're a manipulator. I know that I felt like that from you, and I was just like, you are so manipulative. I didn't feel like there was really anything that you would show up and do that wasn't manipulative.
Well, people throw this around so much, and we'll dive into it in a minute on the other side of it, but like, in our story wise, like, she felt that way. I felt the same way. I was like, you're gaslighting me, which technically by definition, gaslighting is manipulation. Cause it's anyways, like, there's that. And then you have like the other stuff was like, I felt like she was manipulating me so she could get her way and like an outcome. And then like, I thought that like, well, and then even when she was being nice, I was like, when is it? Like, what's going on here? I don't trust you. Like, labels drove so much. Like, we already had a lot of mistrust. Let's put it that way. Do the affairs and like a combination of like abuse, like, like the physical abuse and then like lies and stuff and other things. And then you add these labels on top of it, and it added a whole new level of mistrust and lack of hope.
Yes.
Like, for me,
I forgot there is an actual label for someone who lies all the time. And I forget what that one is, but
it's a chronic liar.
Oh yeah. Chronic liar. Like, that one's very common too. So, manipulator, toxic, and emotionally unavailable. So obviously, like, we were labeled toxic. We threw that at each other all the time. I was like, you're so toxic. Everything about you is toxic. And it was like this doomsday type of situation. And then emotionally unavailable would come into play, especially tying into like the narcissist. It's like, well, you're also emotionally unavailable.
You're not there for me. During my roughest times, I was all alone. I wasn't with you. You were away doing XYZ. Like, all of these, like, it wasn't exactly not true. Like, we were other places and like felt abandoned, I'm not saying that's not true, but it was like we labeled each other emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
Like, they're just emotionally unavailable. Like, they're an emotionally unavailable person. They don't know how to process it. They don't know how to like actually like have emotions, right?
We'll
they're
never be able to
of
connect on emotions.
Yeah. That was a huge thing.
Yeah. It was like, we'll never have that understanding of emotions. And I was like, you're just incompetent of emotional intelligence. You're just incompetent to understand. And I was pretty on the mean side. So, which would go into like controlling as well. Like, so controlling would also like bleed into like that narcissistic one as well. Just like, oh, you're so controlling. And I would be like, you control everything. You want everything to be done your way. I'm like, you make me do all these things. You make me do this and that. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. And so I thought he was so controlling. I was like, you just always want to have your way.
Yep.
And then you said the same thing about me, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and we'll say one more thing. So kind of retouching one more time, then we'll dive into another one here. But the covert narcissist thing, like I was convinced, like, because like she would go out and everyone loved her. And everyone would believe her side of the story no matter what. Everyone would always take her side. Like that was the not, and I know that's an exaggeration. It's not 100% true, but like for the most part, like that's the way I felt at the time. And so, when it comes to reality, like, but then behind closed doors, she's a different person, right? Like I was like, she's horrible. Like try to smother me with a pillow, like all these different things. Like, you have all the, yeah, we have all these but then at the same time, I was a person that like tried to drug her and get into her, like, so we have all these different things.
You actually locked me inside one day, which was part of a narcissist, right? Like that controller, the toxic, the manipulator, like, and so, this day that we had an argument, like thank God our kids were not home this day, but he wouldn't let me leave. And I mean, I was scared of Tommy. He was really strong. While I was the one who hit him and he didn't like hit me, this day was one of those days that he used his size and stuff as intimidation. It didn't take actual contact to me because my dad had already instilled that with my childhood had already instilled a fear of men and them being angry. So it didn't take much, like just like the rage and that bowing up and like those sorts of things was all it took to have that fear. Like, so you didn't lay hands on me anyways, but that was...
I was too terrified too, but also this wasn't how it was.
Yeah, but he like locked me inside one day and like was yelling at me. He wouldn't let me have my keys. He wouldn't let me have my phone. And it was just like one of those. And so I was like, see, you are a manipulator. You're so controlling. You are a narcissist. And it just led down this. And that it was terrifying. Like, because then it was like that real sense of fear of like, I'm trapped and he's going to hurt me.
Well, you got to think about like all these labels, right, that we're still going into. Like, it was like, we would go back and forth and I'd be like, I went into a lot of prove it mode. So not only on other things, but like there's a lot of things I went through that on, but like here specifically too, because I would be like, oh, I'm not this. And I would try to do better and I'd make all these promises and all this stuff. And then then we would get, fly off the handle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of course, at some point. And then she'd be like, fact find. Look, this is what you're doing. This is who you really are. You'll never change. This is how it's always going to be. There's no hope. I can't believe we're here again. Like all these, like there's so many different, like it was always proving those types of things that we went through.
Yeah. And I want to head on. So Tommy, when you said like everyone loved me and those sorts of things, I had a great reputation. I did. And people really did take my side. And so he's not lying on those things, but it would fall into the fact that at the time I was a people pleaser. I was very codependent and a people pleaser. So both of those really fell into things that I was, and it was like, oh my gosh. And so codependency, by the way, if you don't know, goes along the lines with a narcissist. So typically how it happens in a relationship is a codependent, and this is if you go search on narcissists, what you're going to find is like a codependent pairs with a narcissist, and so the codependent is the victim, the codependent is the one that is so sweet and the empathetic, and so the codependent is just the victim in all of this, while the narcissist is the abuser. And like, so I was framed by all of culture and society that I'm a victim. Tommy's awful.
And she believed it.
And Tommy's the problem. And I do have to go ahead and just like challenge you right now in this moment. If you're like, yeah, like, or just getting defensive, just know that a lot of times, like when you're seeing things in yourself or the things that you want to protect is what you get defensive about. And so I just challenge you to lay down your guard and just to have humility and ask like, hey, Holy Spirit, how do you want me to receive this? Where do you want my eyes open? Because one of the biggest things that happened in our life was when I recognized like the lies being fed through these labels. But this is like what a codependent was in that situation, and managing emotions and managing all the responsibility. And the codependent handles everything and they take so much responsibility and they're so sweet.
Yeah, we're going to dive into what it is in a second too, but
yeah, but so those are the types of things that like came out in our relationship, which is why I would manage Tommy. I would manage the relationship. I would manage the atmosphere, like making sure like the right music was playing, right? Like the kids were saying the right things, that there wasn't toys, that everything was like how Tommy liked, so that, you could control his mood. You really couldn't. obviously.
And we both felt that way in different ways, to be honest. Like, I mean, she could breathe wrong, or the back door could be open. I didn't know about it, and the front door could slam harder. Or she could just maybe be in a hurry and slam it a little bit harder than what she normally does. Yeah. Or she could legit slam it. But like, I mean, most time, like, she wasn't typically slamming stuff. And so, like, you know, it was one of those things where, like, I was constantly trying to figure out, like, what's wrong? We need to talk. What's wrong? Like, all those. And it was just, which would annoy her anyways.
Yes.
But, okay, so next one is bipolar. So we went, man, like, I didn't get labeled this, I don't think.
Not from my understanding.
Yeah,
I did.
But she did, and I believed it. Like, I believed this one even more than the narcissist thing. Like, and I was on point with that, but like, not like I was correct, but like, I was just like I believed it. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Now the bipolar thing, like everybody said that she was, professionals said that she was. And I was like, man, like one moment she's like this and I think it's good. And the next moment she's like, whew, like firecracker, like go from 0 to 1,000 is what she used to do.
Yeah, it was never 0 to 100, it's 0 to 1,000. And so in this bipolar, and you know, at this time, like we don't really remember about if I was labeled borderline personality disorder. I feel like that was there, but the bipolar is the one that stuck out the most to me. And both of those, though, you know, had a real sense of fear for myself. And I know they scared Tommy because like my dad had those labels, and my dad had all kinds of mental health issues going on,
schizophrenia and stuff like that.
So when I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm bipolar, like it's in my genes, I'm stuck, like this is just how I am. And you can tell, like, if you're catching the theme, that all these labels like brought in a huge sense of hopelessness and division. Yeah. And this, you know, so the bipolar, I was like, oh my gosh, I got it from my dad. I'm like, you know, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? And I remember being in the bathroom one day being like, oh my God, like I'm bipolar. I'm like, what? And just like my heart was crushed and broken because I was like, you know, that's not like my heart. Like that wasn't my intent. And just being told that, I was like, you know, what's wrong with me? Like, how do you fix this? And the things out there for that are like, oh, that's just how you are. And you just have to manage it and take pills and all these things. And like, you know,
which she's not for.
I'm not for. No. And
pills wasn't for it then, ain't for it now.
No, like, pills ended up killing my dad. So like, no, like I'm not for those types of things. Like I'm not for it. And so, you know, bipolar, the borderline personality disorder, like it was a massive emotional and mental toll on myself. Like I had a breakdown. And then, okay, so having a breakdown about finding out that someone's labeling you bipolar, and then that only fed into me going, oh my gosh, it's true. They're right. And I was like, oh, so yeah, created massive destruction there.
And I believed it because like, I was like, well, I knew your dad for a long time, obviously. Yeah. And I was like, it's just the definition of crazy. But then like you got the other side of it, which he was great. Great person. I loved her dad, by the way. Taught me how to work. Great work ethic. Anyways, different topic. But like when it comes down to it, he had some issues, to say the least.
Because he wasn't taught.
Yeah, he wasn't taught, but there's also other things there. And I was like, well, she's labeled this. I could definitely see like other people in her family being labeled this too. And then I was like, you know, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. And everything was like, wow, I'm just with someone that's bipolar and narcissist and just. That was the main two things, but there was other things too.
And also, so like the abuser, right? Like, so Tommy would be like, he's like, you're so abusive. And I know he called me that a lot. And you'll notice that we ended up cycling and calling each other a lot of the same things. It's like we couldn't see past like our own hurts, our own wounds. And, you know, we would find people to validate. It is not a challenge at all to find someone to validate your victimhood and to target against and put the blame on someone else. That's easy. You can find that really just about anywhere. And this is why it's so important for us to be like truth tellers and walk in with the Holy Spirit on these things because of that. But it was like, no, Tommy would call me like all these abusers because, you know, there was a season that I would hit him. And that's just how I was raised. Like, you don't like something or you are mad, just hit. Like, just... You know, like I was raised more tomboy and with my brother and, you know, it was just like you just hit or tackled or whatever. And obviously that's not healthy, but that's what I was raised with.
Yeah. You'll get a whole episode just on abuse, but like, we're just going to dive in these things high level here. But like, There was also codependency. Now, she has said she's been codependent before, and there's a lot of women in that stuff, but like in her bloodline, which we'll talk about. But like when it comes to this, like the reality of it is like codependency was something that she felt like she really struggled with. And I didn't really fully, to be fair, I didn't understand it. Like I didn't really, it wasn't my natural go-to, like in different ways. And so, yeah, I'll let her talk on this, but it wasn't really my like thing on my end. I was just more like, oh, that's a thing for you. It wasn't like I labeled her that necessarily. But she kind of self-labeled herself that.
Well, it was all the research, right? And with the labels and the counselors and stuff being like, well, you're narcissistic. And they would tell me I'm codependent because you're the narcissist. So I was codependent because they pair up like according to society. But not only that, like this is like when I learned like what society says a codependent person is, I was like, wow, like that's all I've ever seen in my family, like ever. Like every woman that I knew was codependent. Like they managed their husband's emotions. They made sure that their husband was happy. Like they were like, oh, don't be angry. Like they're don't have any consequences. Let me fix all these things. Let me take on responsibility. Let me, and so that's a lot of codependency. And so I was like, that's all I've ever seen. I'm like, that isn't that what a woman is supposed to do? And so newsflash, no, like you're not, by the way, but you might be falling into that trap. And like, that's where I was. And so that was a huge one as well. And then, so Tommy, let's talk about sex addict before we go into like our pitfalls, because sex addicts is really thrown around. And I'm going to go ahead and just declare that and let you know that like sex addict is thrown around for men and women. So don't become biased and be like, oh, this is just like for a certain sex. Like, oh, only men are sex addicts. Yeah. That is not true.
Yeah, by the way, I want to mention one thing here. You may have noticed we did not mention attachment styles. That's because when we went through our stuff, that wasn't a thing. So it probably would have been a thing between us for sure, but it wasn't a thing at that time.
It wasn't really like popular.
It wasn't like if it was a thing, it wasn't like mainstream, and we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
So that's why, just so you know. But sex addict, so like, yeah, I mean, this is thrown around a lot by society. I hear it probably more so, or less so, I mean, than narcissist and like those things, and especially attachment style stuff nowadays. That's probably the most common thing I hear aside from narcissist. But like the sex addict thing, like she thought that I was for sure, like, because that's all I seemed to want. And I didn't care about her emotions. She just wanted her body and all this type of stuff. And then like, not to mention all the affairs that we had in the mix of that were physical and stuff like that. And so like, you had like all these different things pop up, and we're like, well, and then you got like, I used to be, well, actually we both used to be addicted to pornography, but because that's another way people describe it, as like pornography and all that type of stuff, being addicted to it. But then you get labeled a sex addict.
Yeah. And I know that you labeled me this because I was so flirtatious, and I did watch porn all the time. And he's like, that's just a problem. And because of like all of that tying into each other, and with Tommy, like I had labeled him this as well, because I was like, all of these things. And, for us, like that didn't disappear out of our marriage. And so like having sex did not, like some people do, some people don't, and it didn't. And I was like, that's all you care about. And I'm like, and you use it, and it's manipulative. And of course,
it wasn't healthy.
It was not healthy. And it most certainly wasn't like an intimate, like, or loving type of thing at all. Right.
It ended up very cold and calculated at different points. And then like when you go through it, you're like, thinking about other stupid stuff anyways, like who else she did this with, like, and then so it's like it's and then what it was like, was it better or was it worse, or was it like you get it, you can't even enjoy it, like, so it wasn't like it was healthy at all.
No, yeah. And so we'll have to talk about overcoming. So if you struggle with some of those thoughts, let us know. But with this, like we both had gone through this, and so it was like, oh, well, things are hopeless, and you're going to hear us say that a lot, but with all of these labels, like when you look them up and you do the research, you keep digging, and it's just like, this is just how that person is, like they'll never be able to change, and like they're going to struggle with this forever, and this is something that they're going to have to work really, really hard to overcome, and then they're just going to end up managing, and it can come up at any time. Yeah,
and they're labeled, like at that point, not a narcissist, but a recovering narcissist, or a recovering alcoholic, or a recovering sex addict, or recovering people pleaser, or recovering codependent. Like, it's like, dude, like, and you get these people that have been recovering for like 20 years.
So
I'm like, wow.
I think that's a great lead into pitfalls and mistakes, because when you go into labeling as a recovering, what that does is it attaches your identity to that said thing. So every stronghold that thing had over your life, whether it be the sex addict, sex addict, the narcissist, even the alcoholic, right? Like I don't identify as a recovering alcoholic, even though like I was a full blown alcoholic at one point. I'm not recovering at all. Like, no, like that's not who I am. Like my identity is not attached to any of that. And even to this very point, like I'm not attached to those. And so that's a huge pitfall is people will keep their identity attached to like their trauma, their just the labels and recovering, and so that they're always dragging that thing through their life.
Yep. So I want to go over like kind of a sequence that typically happens, and you can say if this has happened to you. I'm just going to go through it because I won't remember all of it. But our situation, in essence, before I go through that, it did feel hopeless for me too. Like it was horrible. Like it felt hopeless. I was like, for so many different reasons. The label is just one reason why it felt hopeless, but like there was a lot of other things.
I want to add in with that because it just made me think that you would then be like, "You're just like your dad," and you're like, "Oh gosh,"
which made her really mad. So
yeah, and then he's like, "It is all you," and adding to that extra hopelessness there. Go ahead.
Yeah, but here's what people typically do. So the cycle is like this: they feel hopeless. And feel like they feel like this should not be this hard. Relationships with someone should not be this hard, this painful, this big of an issue. Other people don't have this issue, which is not true.
That's a lie, by the way.
But like, it's like this, the devil wants you to believe you're alone in this. This is abnormal, right? It gives the situation more power. Right. And this is not normal. And then what happens after that? So after you have that conclusion and you have all these like realizations, you're like, you come to a conclusion on your own or through a professional to label your spouse something, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Right. And then it turns into, and that justifies all your pain and makes sense for your situation. And then you feel hopeless that they can't change. Then you start planning your way out. Yeah, how do we know this?
You can't change, so I have to leave.
Yeah. Then you start planning your way out, and even like that can have an uptick in like the affairs, like being seen more often or stuff, because it's like, who cares? You know, mm-hmm. What's the point? And then you have all the mix of like making each other mad in between there, and it's like it just escalates. It's so painful. Like, and you're like, how do you know this? Well, because we went through it. Mm-hmm. And so like then you start planning your way out, and the truth is labels are not helpful. They only hurt your situation.
Oh, yeah. And not only 100%. That, but they're not true, right? So can I go ahead and just like let them know where we are at the moment?
Well, hold on. So okay. First of all, I want to say some things like we don't believe in mental disorders. We don't believe in mental disorders. We don't believe in labels. We don't believe in any of that stuff. They're mostly misdiagnosed as realistically like, when it comes to it, there's something wrong with the brain or the body, chemistry, that type of stuff, especially with mental disorders. But realistically, what it comes down to, like, is like on the mental disorder aspect of it, just to typically talk about that, is a lot of times that, like for example, like if you were to talk about schizophrenia, or there's actually something physically wrong with the brain. Like I used to have seizures and stuff like that. There's actually physically something wrong with the brain. That is actually not a physical symptom. It's manifesting as that, but there are demons. Mm-hmm. There are demons. There are things going on internally with you. I don't believe those things are permanent. I don't believe God makes people that way. I don't believe that's God's will for people's lives at all.
We've seen way too much.
That's going to make some people mad, but
we've seen too much healing. We have seen too many people break free, even from things like the things of like ADD, dyslexia, and there's another one that's really common for.
Oh yeah, ADHD. We didn't even talk about that. I was on that medication.
Yeah, you were. And there's another really big one, and I've like witnessed like. people be healed from those things, right? And so there is so many, and we're not diving into like the deep spiritual part of this today. And if you're curious, like you can drop in the comments and let us know that you want to hear more on that. But 100%, like we have seen and like heard and so many testimonies about like demons like possessing and coming out into like these labels and these mental disorders as well. So we are a multi, like we're a body, we have a spirit, like we are not just like a person like on earth, like we're a
triune being.
Yes. And so there is multiple things that play a role here. You do have your mental state, your emotional state, but there's also a spiritual part too. They all tie in to lead into how these labels get classified, and they all have to be addressed. So
yeah. think about it this way. What does the enemy want to do? He's going to want to label you to give you, anyways, we'll go into that. But like the funny thing is about it, I have literally heard people say like ADHD, like my husband, it's hopeless because, and he won't ever be able to have a healthy marriage because he has ADHD. I'm like, wait,
that's not true. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not making fun of you kind of, but like when it comes down to it, like, it's just ridiculous to think that like I was on that type of stuff. I was on that type of medication and it's something you can fix. But anyways, it's not like a real thing.
And, so like even the anxiety and the depression, like those things are easily fixed, all of those things really are. And so it's not hopeless, but what happens is like the labels will get you in a place of hopelessness and feeling isolated and put you in a state of like you're a victim. And so therefore there's nothing that you can do and you're just a victim of circumstance, which what Tommy was like leading into earlier was, like that's the ploy of the enemy. He wants you to think things are hopeless. He wants you to be a victim because victims don't take action. Victims sit on the sideline and wait to be rescued. But like that doesn't happen. Like
or give up at all.
Yeah. Or they just give up. And we see that a lot as well, which breaks our heart, which is why we're here talking to you at the moment, because this is, we can't make you do anything, but we can like inspire you and share our story and our little client stories and help give you that light of there's a lot you can do, And so that was one of the pitfalls though, is like we fell into the victim mentality and we fell into like there's nothing we can do. We fell into like they can never change. And all of those things are 100% lies. Like there is hope, there is things that you can do. And another pitfall that we fell into was listening to the toxic so-called friends and the people that just want to label. So like just in like honestly thinking about it, like we'll dive deeper into this another day, but the people that were professionals, quote unquote, like divorced, not ever married, and just different types.
Got it right on their second one, whatever.
Quote unquote, supposedly like just different strongholds that they had because like and a lot of times, like, they were like, oh, I've been through that, so this is what they are. Because they didn't ever have an answer to that in their relationship.
Because they couldn't fix it.
Because they didn't know, like, right? Like, I'm not saying those people were bad or bad-hearted people. They just weren't taught. And so they were just teaching based on, like, their experience. Like, that was it. It was like, oh, this has to be the answer because I didn't have a solution, so this has to be it.
Which is what happens. Like people go to these counselors, their therapists, the whatever, right? And they get labeled like these different things. But then also like what happens is because they couldn't come through it, what happens is then you can't come through it and it's a cop-out.
Yeah.
And so like, I mean, yeah, we can talk more about that. But a lot of times, man, like people kind of have some questions. It's like, well, what if my spouse has labeled me XYZ, whatever it is, right? Now what? Okay, we'll discuss that. Some common questions like the therapist or counselor labeled me, or their therapist or counselor labeled me, or what was our therapist, now their therapist, which is super common because then you leave because they label you, has labeled me, which is super common too. And then like another one is like, how do I change? Mm-hmm. How do I fix myself? Like that's where I was. Like that's where I was at one point, and then I swung the other areas too. But like, is there hope for my spouse even too?
Yeah. So these are really common questions, However, I have to start with like, there is hope and there is things that you can do. So it doesn't matter if you're on the side that has been labeled or if you're the one labeling. And typically if you're the one who's labeling, you've picked up your own labels, right? Like, so like I was like, Tommy's a narcissist, which makes me codependent. So there's typically like labels being thrown around on both sides. It's not just one side, but remember like the labels like end up putting you in that victim state. But one of the first things, like, you're going to have to stop labeling and be open to learn from a different perspective and learn away from culture.
Yeah. Do you want to fix it or not?
Yeah.
Like if you want to fix it and you want to give up or quit, then cool. Let's look at this. So, we're going to cover like, and kind of go through each one of these. Now this, just to be clear, each one of these meaning like narcissist, covert narcissist, overt narcissist, manipulator, all these different labels, right? We're going to go through these things more in depth here, but we're not going to go through them because each one of these could be a 2-hour episode. Like an hour to 2-hour episode easily on these things.
Breaking down like what they are,
the science
why,
behind them,
the science, how to overcome, how to train the brain, how to, how they show up, like where they come from, like all the real root of underlying is what he's referring to on how they could be such an in-depth episode. And if you want that, if you're like, well, I really need to know about the narcissist because my spouse is a narcissist, or even maybe I have been scarred and damaged because my mom or my dad was a narcissist.
Yeah, and you'd be blown away by some of the actual origin points of these things and where they came from in the first place. Yeah. It's not where you think.
So you can drop that in the comments if you want to know about those things.
Yeah, but anyways, let's go into narcissistic first. So narcissistic red flags, they say and there's so many, there's like 30 red flags technically, but we'll highlight some of the most common ones. They make everything about themselves. They rarely take responsibility. They minimize your feelings. They need constant praise or validation. Like, what do you, like when you look at these, we're going to kind of go back and forth and discuss these on like what's really going on here, but like when I look at this, I'm like, wow, like, okay, well, rarely take responsibility. That's like most of society, like true responsibility.
Literally just every label that we just talked about put themselves in a victim state and that it was someone else's fault.
Yeah. And then you got like minimize your feelings. Have you ever done that to anyone ever in existence? Yeah, probably. You say no, you're lying. You take pride. You get rid of pride. Let's raise your hands for pride there.
Wait, Tommy. So pride is narcissist right there. So that's a sign of a narcissist.
You must
pride.
Be a narcissist.
So what I hear in these about like they make everything about themselves is honestly like I just hear such a struggling person. And so when someone doesn't like when they make everything about themselves, it's because they feel unseen and unheard.
Yeah, and not good enough. I have to seek external validation through the world.
So they project themselves, and so they feel so unseen that they will talk so much about themselves because their brain isn't storing it. Like they aren't going to recognize these things. So that person that you talk, like you're like, they always talk about themselves. Yeah, it's because really internally they feel like they don't matter and they're not heard or seen.
Yeah.
It's a hurting person.
You got entitled, act entitled. Wow. I mean, I'm pretty sure whoever's listening to this, you've never acted entitled multiple times in your life, but I have. And, that would make me a narcissist, right? Like just because you're act entitled or, you gaslight, which is what is gaslighting, right? What gaslighting is like, making someone feel crazy about the situation, about the real truth. And it's not, and then it's like convincing them that like they're the one that's like the problem and all those types of things. But like, what is that really like? I'm sure there's like, when it comes to like entities and government, sure there's some people that do that. But like when I'm talking like people, everyday people like see their own viewpoint and they have their own beliefs and they're like, my emotions are valid. This is what's going on. This is what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. This is what's like, and then you're like, my emotions are valid. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's going on. No, my emotions are valid. It's like, it's going back and forth. It's going back and forth. And it's like, well, both of you feel entitled to have your own emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
So the narcissist seems to be like highly self-focused, needing admiration, needing external approval, struggling with empathy, and they often see themselves as just more important than other people. And
blame you for, another one is like they blame you for their reactions.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. Have you ever blamed anyone for your reactions ever? Ever? Come on now. Like you see the just ridiculous of this going, like it's all it is deep rooted beliefs literally on the way, because deep rooted beliefs drive your behavior and then that drives your habits and your interactions and your reactions and all these things. That's literally what it is. It just needs to be reprogrammed.
Yeah, there's survival techniques, right? And so not taking on responsibility. Most of these people that are narcissists were never taught to take responsibility as a kid. But
then their parents were narcissistic.
Yeah. And so like all of that ends up coming out, or, they apologize just to end the conflict. I know so many people who do this, and it's why, and it's for deeper things. Like, it's like, well, if I just apologize, they'll shut up and we'll have peace. Well, if I just apologize, if I just take the blame, then it ends the argument. Well, if I just apologize, then, they'll be happy again. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about managing that state, managing that emotion. And like, they have no, like all of those other people, they had no intent to change. They're just taking ownership. They're like, well, if I just take the blame, and they don't actually think they're wrong. They don't actually mean they're sorry. They're just throwing the word around as a manipulation tactic to end conversation. So whether that's the narcissist or the people pleaser or the conflict avoidant, we didn't add that one either.
There's so many different freaking
because there's so many labels. Are you getting the point? There's so many like different labels, and so it goes into that. And so let's hit on that covert narcissist too, because
well, hold on, one more thing on this one. So there's a charm publicly, but they could be cruel privately. That was what I thought she was doing, right? Everybody loves her publicly. Remember I said that earlier. And then you got cruel privately. That's what I thought, and I'm sure she thought some other things to me too. But like when it comes down to that, like what we really know, what's really going on there is she needed to be liked by everyone. And is that like a narcissist thing? No, it's just like an internal self-worth issue thing. Mm-hmm. Like that's all it literally is. Like it's how you were raised, how you were growing up, what shaped your reality, the beliefs, which all can change.
Yep. 100%. So diving into that covert narcissist, because like what Tommy just mentioned kind of goes into both of them. But it's more hidden. So the covert one is more hidden and passive, victim-minded, like self-pity. Oh my gosh, maybe I should have called you covert, because I felt like I was always like the Tommy cry party, pity party. I remember telling you that all the time. I was like, So this one doesn't look super loud or cocky, but they're still self-centered. Right.
They look humble.
They look humble, but they're still self-centered. And, you know, they play the victim still. They use guilt instead of directional aggression.
Or shame. Yeah.
Yeah. They punish you with silence or withdrawal. They seem humble, but they can't handle correction. So I'm going to hit on these because, I couldn't handle correction, because if someone corrected me, what that would imply to me is that I was wrong. And if I was wrong, then I didn't manage the state right, and I was looking stupid, which meant that people wouldn't like me. And it was like a whole fear response based on like how I had grown up in my survival. So yes,
she was so big on not looking stupid. Like,
I had to. And it's all like, these are survival techniques that I learned. I learned that, hey, if you manage the state, if you manage the emotions, if you are like right and you can't be put down, you can't be wrong, and you're not doing things wrong, then you're safe. And so a lot of those things would come out, and you see like there's these trigger reactions to trigger thoughts that went into these behaviors.
Yep. Another one is like when it comes to overt narcissism, like this was me. She was like, and it's funny because people get labeled this like for the dumbest reasons. I don't know if that's a word, but like they get labeled this like for like the most ridiculous reasons. Like I got labeled overt. One of the not all the reasons, but one of the reasons I got labeled overt narcissism was because I took care of my body and I was in really good shape. I was ripped. And so, because I take care of my body,
you're so conceited.
I must be conceited, which I was. But still, that doesn't mean
you just love yourself. Like so
not everybody that takes care of, it's just like, you love yourself, so you must be. But then at the same time, like you got that same person on the other side. I need to learn how to love myself. I'm trying to learn how to love myself. Wait a minute, you just called me narcissist for loving myself too much. So like, wait, there needs to be this line where I can't love myself too much. But I need to love myself just enough to make other people happy. And it's like, dude, like that's not like, oh my gosh, that was one of the things. But like, they need to be admired. They need to be like, status, have all this status. Basically, they care about image more or less is what it means.
Yeah, and what's funny is like as we go through some of these red flags, like you can probably pick yourself up in a little bit of each of them. Like so far, I have picked up things that I would do. So in this one, the overt or whatever, they would embarrass or belittle others, and they would see disagreements as disrespect, and they would compete with their spouse instead of loving them. Yeah, I fell into all of those. Sarcasm was how my family grew up.
Fluid.
Like
and quick. We still are,
but now it's in a healthy way. Like now we can do it for fun and like on a lighthearted, like healthy way. But at that time, like it wasn't. It was like, I have to belittle and make you the butt of the joke to make it funny, ha, and we're all gonna laugh. And that's just I witnessed this just growing up, and so I learned
benefited from it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I'm
benefited.
being
right?
sarcastic. Yeah.
So he was the butt of a lot of the jokes, and so it was like, oh, Tommy, so whatever, and like we'd throw him under the bus and like all laugh. And so you've probably been made the butt of a joke before and did not think it was fun, and you might have a spouse that does this to you, right? This is
A lot.
I did this a lot, and it was a part of those things of just like what I had witnessed, what I had learned. And going into that, and then I did have to compete with Tommy because for me, like again, going back to like the what was safe is like I had to have people love me, and people had to love me, and more than Tommy, and I didn't want to be forgotten. I wanted to be needed, tying into that people pleaser again, because like that's what I knew as safety. Like that's what kept me safe and gave me love growing up. So,
Yep. Another one is manipulator. Which, by the way, so these things, like if you notice, like in the narcissist, like these different things from narcissist to overt, all these things, like realistically, all these are like just traits that can be changed. Like they're traits, but people like they're traits. That's just how they are. No, that's not who they are. God did not make man, woman, and then narcissist on the third day.
yeah,
That's
or
not.
man, woman, and then other insert label on the third day.
Yeah, God didn't make the like Adamites and like all these like dude, like he didn't make the Canaanites and like all these people, and then the Narsonites, and then the like I don't know, like that's just dumb. Like he didn't do that.
No.
Like anyways, then you got manipulator, which is like they twist the words, they guilt trip you, they deny the obvious things that they said or did, they use weakness against you, they make you question your memory. Which some of this could even go into like the narcissist thing. But like regardless, like, when it comes down to it.
Oh, and they act loving when they want something.
Yeah, I literally think someone went in here and then like literally like in the book, they're like, everything that happens to me that I don't like, let's put it here. And then this is what they do. And then this is who they are now. And then this is like, it's just ridiculous. But manipulation. So people throw this word around like everywhere. Like you could literally be trying to help someone and they're like, you're being manipulative. Like I have literally been on like calls with people, getting them to like obviously get on board with us, and I was like, see if they want to work with us and all those types of things. And they're like, the questions you're asking can be manipulative. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to manipulate you. Let's just make this very clear. Manipulation, this is the only real definition of this. Look it up, Google it, like research it, like do all the deep work on what manipulation is. This is what it boils down to. Manipulation is getting someone to do what you want for the betterment of just you. Just you. Just you. Or an organization, if you're like a company. But like, that's not true. Like when it comes to like what it, or that is true, but like, that's not what's really happening most of the time. People throw the word, oh, you're being manipulated, but they throw it out as like, manipulation is like just you're doing something I don't like, so therefore you're manipulative.
I don't like that. You're right. It's like, I don't like that, so you're manipulative.
You're just manipulative. You're doing something I don't like, and you're trying to get me to see your outcomes, and you're not outcome. You're trying to get me to see your way, so you're manipulative. You're apologizing. You're manipulative.
Everyone wants to be heard and seen. So just for clarity there. So wanting to be heard and seen is not manipulative. But I will say that like from like us, like we have a responsibility. We are servants of Christ. And, so we are going to challenge your way of thinking. We are going to challenge society. We're not called to be a part of society. We want to see you set free from all of these labels, and we're just going to give some quick traits on some other ones. And then we're going to do like a big debunk on them and how to overcome them for you. But that's our obligation, is to share these things with you and to direct you to a path of freedom. So I will not validate victimhood. Tommy doesn't either. We don't believe in making you a victim. That's not how God created you. You are empowered, and there's things that you can do. And unfortunately, we just don't see a lot of this being taught. So that's why we teach you this. Like
literally so far, like going through this, we're not even done. Like we could label you most likely every single one of these things.
And let's just be honest. Like, let's just take that.
It's stupid. Like, it's pointless to do that to you.
Yeah, and so we're not, obviously, but like just have that humble spirit of like, right, where could I have some of these traits? And so, Tommy, let's just hit on like what the traits are, and then let's just do like a big debunk on all of them.
We can. I mean, okay. So toxic. you got like constant drama, no real accountability, repeated disrespect, emotional chaos. You feel drained after being around them. They bring out the own worst version of themselves. No, they bring out your worst version. My bad.
Yeah, your worst version.
They refuse growth, and the relationship has more fear than safety.
Yeah, that's
what so general.
Toxic is.
Like toxic, and people throw this out too. Like they argue with me. You're toxic.
Constant drama. I'm like, that is like, you turn on TV, it's drama. That's what we're taught how to talk. Like I honestly, there's people that know how to have a conversation that does not include drama or talking about someone else, just because like it's just taught so much, right? Like, and so this toxic is thrown around, and like that emotional chaos, there is like emotional chaos is what most people are being raised in. And so if you're being raised in it, it doesn't just disappear, it continues.
But it doesn't mean that's how you're stuck.
No, it's just, again, traits that you have been taught.
It's cultural programming. The devil likes to do this. Like he will literally install things in culture. You learn it, and then you don't question it because that's the way things are after so long. Mm-hmm. And so but it's not supposed to be. And so like these are cultural things that you learn, the social programming, which is kind of similar. But like you have all these different things that come up in your past, and they turn into deeper beliefs, and then they program you, and then you act, and people try to outwork them by becoming better, but then they fail because like then they can't outwork their deeper beliefs, and then they end up in this cycle of shame, and then they feel hopeless. And some people go that route, and some people blame like other people and leave. They go from relationship to relationship to relationship. Literally, I have talked to people on the phone that have been on their 10th marriage, 10 twice in my lifetime. I've seen like, and they refuse to believe that they were the problem still. Like, wow, you got issues. So like when it comes down to it, which is pride, that's pride. But like when it comes down to it, you got emotionally unavailable. So what is this? Well, they avoid serious conversations. They shut down when emotions come up. They say, I don't want to talk about it. That was her. Like a lot. Like, I don't want to like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, let's just focus on the future and be positive. Stuff it under the rug.
Yeah.
We talked about this a million times. Well, clearly it's not fixed.
Oh my gosh. I was like, we did talk about this a million times. I was like, can we talk about something different? I'm like, I don't want to talk about this no more. Right. And so being called emotionally unavailable. No, I was tired of having the same conversations and not having any resolution. I was tired of the pity party. Like, I'm like, I don't care to talk about the problem no more. I'm like, if it's not a solution, I don't care. And if it's not a solution of you taking accountability, because let's
hit on that end piece. It wasn't like, if there's not a solution for us, it was a solution like if you can't change and it's not you fixing you're the problem, you're broken, those types of things, you're the issue, then I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And your words mean nothing to me. Until you change, I don't care.
And part of this, they give logic but not empathy, or they avoid commitment or deeper connection and those sorts of things. One, like there is natural strengths. So Tommy is more logical and I am more emotional. Like that, and that's not a man and a woman thing. I hate things that are classified like man and woman like that.
Another label.
And,
my gosh.
Yeah. And so, no, it's a people thing. Some people are designed with a brain that's more logic. Great. There is nothing wrong with Tommy on that. And I'm just because I have more of emotional, like doesn't mean that I can't have a logical part or see things differently. Right. But
some of that's the way God designed you in the essence of like your personality, logic, but that's not the bad part. And then some of that's the way like people actually just act via mostly just social programming.
And let's talk about like a lot of men are labeled emotionally unavailable just because they're taught what as a kid, shut up, suck it up,
rub some dirt in it,
don't cry,
be a man.
You need to be a man. You don't show weakness.
I'll give you a reason to cry.
I was told that too, though.
Raise your hand if you are me.
I was totally different. Like, okay, here's something to cry about. Yeah. But so you're shutting down emotions like that. Don't cry. Like, don't be upset. How many times have you been told, or even you might be guilty of even telling your own kids this? Don't be upset. Don't be mad. Don't be sad. you're literally shutting down emotions. Like that, you shouldn't be telling someone how to feel. We should address underlying and like dive into other things. But when you're shutting down emotions, so that person is starting to learn, like as a kid, like, okay, don't be sad. I'm not allowed to be sad. There are legit people who think that they're allowed to never be mad. I'm like, no, there's righteous anger. Jesus got mad,
I'm mad over things even now. Like, it's fine.
I'm not allowed to be sad. Like if I'm sad, that means that I'm ungrateful. No, like there are things that are sad that pull on your heart. Like God gave us a heart to, feel things. And so these, again, like just end up being different things that were programmed in. You can see a lot of that being passed down, being taught, and it's picked up into the belief system, into behavior, not as who the person is, but a behavior.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because there is a lot of men that what they see in the home is emotionally unintelligent, unavailable. Not saying you're not intelligent, but there's a difference between emotional intelligence and unintelligent unintelligent emotionally. Emotional intelligence is like being able to process your emotions, communicate your emotions, all those things on a small basic level. But regardless, like they grew up seeing that, a lack of it, being able to process those things. And then guess what? You're going to repeat it because you didn't learn it. Like, so you're going to be that way with your kids and your family.
It's just passed down, but you can be the chain breaker. Like you can learn differently. Like Tommy can learn. There's hope for you on that. And
I literally cry all the time now. It'd get a good way from the Holy Spirit, though.
It is not like all the time, but it is like it's just
exaggerating.
Way more emotional, right? So a 7 bipolar. It's a mental health condition involving episodes of mood elevation, such as mania or hypomania, and often episodes of depression. It says it's not the same thing as being moody or changing emotions quickly, but if you are moody or change emotions quickly, you're quickly labeled bipolar. And they're saying it's severe mood swings that damage relationships, and it's a sign of a mental health distress. So yeah, your mental state has your emotional state plays on your mental state. All of these things are going on, and so we're also not clarifying that warning, like we are not health professionals in this. Like we're not officially diagnosing you or discrediting any diagnosis just because I don't want any legal liabilities there. But most certainly I've seen all of these things healed and actually not who you are.
Yeah, not just for our own lives, but hundreds and hundreds of clients that have been diagnosed these things. And so and we never tell people to get off medications. We never
I love it when they do.
They do it on their own.
Yep.
Quickly. But that's their thing. We don't ever tell people to do that because we're not licensed to do that. But when it comes down to it, it's funny because Desnekka was labeled these things, extremely highs and lows, periods of unhealthy energy, followed by all these different lows and highs and impulsive spending, sex, risky decisions, so many different things. And what the thing is, people don't understand, what it's really boiling down to is, one, while there can be mental, physical things going wrong with the brain, there can be. It's not due to just how you were born. It's due to some type of demonic thing always. But in my opinion, some people, even that do deliverance, will tell you that's not true, but I believe it is true. And then it's also a combination of getting rid of the actual deep-rooted beliefs and all those things. But and then being in understanding, not only that, but how God actually designed you.
Yes. And so that's a huge thing in itself. So me personally, I do have extremely high energy a lot of the time. And then after I go, I crash. And in that crash, I'm just different. I'm just whatever. And my energy level is different. My mentality is different. My drive is different on just life, and just very different. I'm just done. And, so that would also come out into the relationship. So you add in everything going on and into the relationship. It was oh yeah, I'm going to work on things. I'm going, I'm doing, I'm working on the house. And then all of a sudden I'd be I don't care. And, I wouldn't clean anything. I'm just whatever. And I'm I'm done with you. This is all hopeless. And
you got the women's cycle too on top of all this.
Oh yeah, throw in hormones to the bipolar, and then there was some very unpleasant things said during that time. But it wasn't that, for the record, I'm not bipolar. So just newsflash, I'm not bipolar, and I'm a very healthy, stable individual. Do I have different energy levels? Yes, I do. Is there environmental factors that factor into that? Yes. But your mental state also wears on you emotionally, and how you're utilizing your brain wears on you emotionally. So if you're draining yourself emotionally, it's gonna shut down your energy levels, just do kinds of different things too. And then if you have conflicting beliefs, a lot of people like, if this is an example, like, I'm almighty, like I am so powerful, I can do anything. And then on this side, they're like, I'm worthless, I'm a victim, like nothing's ever going to change. And so when this thought process is kicked in, they're trying to tackle the world. And then when this thought process of like, I'm hopeless, I'm a victim, and like nothing's going to change, then it's that state of depression. And it's like, wow, this person who was just like really like lit up on fire, like loving people, loving, and then all of a sudden depressed. It's like, wow, that's bipolar. And it's like, no, there's conflicting beliefs. And we see this all the time. And it's a very easy fix on those things too.
God is not a God that wants you to have or has given you any type of these things.
Jesus died on the cross
for our sins and for our minds to all be renewed. And either you believe in all of the Bible or none of the Bible. And so like
he's taken all the curses to the cross.
All of this can be healed, like in my opinion. So like, I'm not, again, disclaimer, not a psychologist. I don't think it's freaking helpful anyways, but regardless, anyways, like let's go to bipolar or BPD.
Yes.
Borderline personality disorder. So this one is fear of being abandoned, intense emotional swings, seeing people as all good or all bad, impulsive reactions. Man, I could have been labeled these so many different times. I didn't know a whole lot about this one, but Desnekka did.
Yes.
Threats of leaving or self-harm during conflict. I did that. Deep insecurity, most explosive fights followed by desperate repair, feelings empty, rejected, unwanted very easily. Like this literally fit me perfectly. I must have BPD.
Yeah, for real. And so this is one of those it's borderline personality, and the borderline personality disorder is so often like confused and paired along with the bipolar, right? Like they often go very similar in those sorts of traits. And so when it goes into this borderline personality disorder, it falls into a lot of those same things I was just discussing, right? Like of the, you swinging high to low, you have conflicting beliefs, you sometimes you're just like, okay, like there's also cycles of, valley of, like you might be really encouraged and then hit a valley of despair. And that's a normal cycle and something different. And all of these things like piling up. And this not even accounting for people can be one way, go talk to this other person, hit a trigger, and then go into this reaction state, and then deep dive down, spiral down. And then so their trigger and going into reaction is now labeled borderline personality or even bipolar, when they were just reacting because they hit a fear, something that was unhealed in them.
We're not justifying their behaviors. We're saying what it really is. It's deep-rooted beliefs, mindsets, all this. We're going to dive into how to fix it, but like all these are true. Like, and then you go into what kind of high-level attachment styles, because that can be its own like podcast. All these can, but you got attachment styles, and you got like secure attachment, you got anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. Oh my gosh, like there's so many different ones. But regardless, either way, let's just go over these high level.
Okay.
And then we're gonna like just debunk them real quick.
So the secure attachment, they repair after conflict, they can apologize, they can be close without being clingy, they respect boundaries, they're emotionally steady, they don't use love as a weapon, they make the relationship feel safe. And so like this is like the one that is like the healthy one-ish out of the attachment styles. Like this is the one that they're like, oh, this is the healthier person, like they're secure, they're mature, like they have trust. They don't lose themselves. And so this is their version of more of a healthy person.
Yeah, anxious attachment. I hear this one the most. This is the most popular one out of all of them. And anxiety is a whole nother label that people attach to themselves. But anyways, anxious attachment is marked by fear of rejection, abandonment. The person often needs reassurance and may become distressed when they feel distant. So the constant need for reassurance, fear the other person will leave, overthinking text, tone, silences, clinginess, panic during conflict, all these different things, which I could have fit all of these.
Yeah.
Like literally, like, but the thing is like when someone, so here's the thing. When someone feels the need to have, this is what's going on here. When someone feels the need to like, actually like, I got to fix this, overthinking text messages, constantly managing the other person's emotions, having to have them happy all the time. Not because of what they're doing, just because like they have to make them happy. Like panic during conflict, or just like having, like that was me. And so like when it comes down to this, and in some ways you too. And so like all this is is one, deeper beliefs, but other thing, it's identity. Like their identity is in that person.
Yes. And in that person, and also being needed, because the anxious attachment comes from like abandonment or rejection. And again, so if you've had abandonment or rejection, this means that it's coming into coping mechanisms and survival techniques that you've learned and that you adapted in order to receive love and to feel secure because of the trauma and the pain of your past. That is what the anxious attachment style is like, hey, like I was abandoned and now that I'm scared. And so now I'm going to be like all worked up and super clingy of don't leave me. Like, can I fix it? Like, don't leave me. Like, I was like, everything okay. And like, because they have not healed from the trauma of the abandonment or rejection that they had felt.
Yeah. And then we'll touch on like kind of one more of these because disorganized one isn't really super popular, but the two are the anxious one. And then you can have like,
anxious avoidant.
You got like these hybrid things of these things. Oh my gosh, it's so many different labels. I'm anxious, avoidant, narcissistic, blah blah blah. Like dude, like just let it go. But like you got this avoidant attachment, which is like they withdraw during conflict. That was her. They dislike emotional conversations. Her, right? Like it was.
Didn't we talk about how
they need?
Like when there was conflict in my house, there was abuse, and like cops called. Yep. Oh, I wonder why I would avoid conflict.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like they feel trapped in closeness, like they minimize needs, they avoid vulnerability, like all these different things are just signs of an unhealthy individual. Realistically, like they're signs of someone that has deep-rooted beliefs, that had problems going up, their cultural programming, all that stuff played a massive role here with this. But people want to slap labels on it. They're an avoidant attachment. They're an anxious attachment. They're an anxious avoidant attachment. They're an anxious avoidant disorganized attachment. Like you got all these different like things. And it's so ridiculous. And then you got controlling, which is another one, like not attached, we're out of attachments now. You got controlling, which is like they monitor your phone, right? Which is a whole nother thing.
Wow.
It's like people, and it's the thing, it's like the funny thing about this is like, I'm not saying always, but like typically, like, so if someone's monitoring your phone, it's usually because of one of two things. On the surface level, you got one, they came into the relationship with pre-existing issues that are now bleeding onto this relationship because from a previous toxic relationship, which doesn't really have to do with that relationship because that relationship could have been fixed, which is going to trigger a lot of people. But it was actually like the issues beforehand of like from childhood that bled into all the way till now. And so like the thing is like people have these like, then you got the other side of it where people are like controlling things because their spouse is actually cheating. Like, oh, like you're in my phone, you violated my privacy. You don't have no privacy. You're cheating. You don't deserve privacy. Come on now. Like you don't get, your privacy rights have gone out the window. You don't get privacy, violated your privacy. They put all the blame on you. And it's like, oh, well, you violated my privacy. You went into my phone. We did this. You went into especially her. You went into my phone, all this stuff. I don't deserve this. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you cheated.
But like it was to protect the cheating. Like it was like I had to blame him. It's like you're controlling, and I was like, you don't want me to hang out with these people
you don't want me to
because
have fun.
I was
you want to control my whole life.
Cheating with those people, right? And it was like you don't want me to have those friends because they were supporting the cheating, like or the staying out and disrespect of the marriage and dishonoring and just like get drunk, like so. It was like all of those things. I was like, oh, he's being so controlling. It was like. No, like really wasn't, but. Yeah,
that's part of it. Then you got the other part of it where people are just controlling in general and they have a lot of fear going on. What the root of it is they have a lot of fear. They have a lot of deep-rooted beliefs that their safety, or their effort is their safety. Their control equals safety. And so where does this come from? Childhood. It comes from like deep-rooted beliefs. It comes from things growing up, and then you have to control the outcomes to feel safe. And those people are typically, they drift into emotional, self-reliance, and then, which is also a sin. And then like, it compiles on it. And then you got abusive and all these different things, verbal abuse, emotional abusive, mental abusive, physically abusive, which we'll kind of hit on that one. But like physically abusive, like she grew up seeing that, like she said earlier.
Yeah. Like it was one that we saw, like I saw this one growing up so much. And it was just like, you throw things, you slam things, like you make a big statement. And so it came down to like, and I would tie it in with the verbal one as well, because it was like the louder you are, the righter you are. So the bigger tantrum. And If you've seen it, you've seen it. If you're in it, I'm sorry. I love you. I was there too. But it was like the bigger tantrum that you threw, the more loud, the more damaging, then the more heard you were and the more right you were. And I know all of that was not proper English, but that's how the brain was working, right? Like, I was like, make the bigger scene. So this is why people like punch holes in walls and, break things, throw things, like slam things, because it's like, if I'm loud, I can express the magnitude of how I feel and they'll finally see and hear me. By the way, they don't. There's a lot of science about how like that actually doesn't.
I just would shut down.
Yeah.
And that's due to my own issues too. But like
shutting down and the yelling, neither is okay. They're both unhealthy.
They're both abusive.
Yes.
Like, I mean, but it's like Stonewall is abusive too. But it's like, dude, like these things are just unhealthy traits. And then you have like financial abuse and all this other things too. But, codependency, it's like the traits of this is like you feel responsible for their emotions. You rescue them from their consequences. You lose yourself in the relationship. You cannot say no. Like, again, like as we talked about earlier, this stuff came from her childhood.
And so it came from for me, it came from my childhood of what I seen. And this was also family culture. This is also a society thing too, as well. And then a stigma as a Christian as be a submissive wife. I'm going to have a whole thing on that one because that be a submissive wife is so taken out of context that it creates enablers and codependency.
Or a Proverb 31 woman, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that 100%. What did I say?
It creates codependency.
Okay. But yes, like that Proverbs 31 woman and that submissive, like that being that submissive woman from the Proverbs 31, like creates these things when it's taken out of context and applied through unhealthy lens. And it just drives me insane. But so this for me was a culture thing from my family. It was family oriented society and being Christian and like that Proverbs 31 and the good wife. And that's all I wanted was like, I wanted a different family than what I grew up in. And I wanted a healthy united marriage. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe the good wife, and I'm going to, make Tommy happy, and I'm not going to say no, and I'm going to make sure that, a good wife, to make sure that their husband isn't embarrassed, and, he is risen up, and all of those things, and I would take those things upon myself, and it made me feel guilty for, like, if I had needs, or those sorts of things. And I did it also because I needed to be needed. So, but this was also survival too. So I had this was so strong because it came from so many different places in my life.
Yeah.
Because the other one was when obviously growing up, when I'm witnessing the man being mad, and when the man's mad, like there's like the house is in chaos, and then violence is erupting.
Cops are in the front yard.
Cops are in the front yard, like division, like that's what I witness when the man's unhappy. So I'm like, all right, you don't make the man unhappy. So if the man's unhappy, you make him happy. And so I learned
managing emotions equals safe.
Yeah, it's all about that safety. So you can see like my codependency came from so many different streams. So we're not just saying it comes from one place. And these things, but there are survival techniques. And this was my survival to feel safe, to feel love, and to make sure that I was not rejected and outcast. And it went into the people pleaser because people pleasers avoid conflict. Hence, I did conflict avoidant attachment style. Can you see how a lot of these carry the similar traits? You could be labeled so many of them at one time.
They're all a lot of the same. But I would say this one's kind of unique in the essence that this is one of the only ones, not all of it, but one of the only ones out of some of them that people actually wear as a badge.
Yes.
And
they're called a good person.
Yeah. Which is we'll deal with a whole nother podcast on this.
I am curious, because actually, I'm gonna say it this way: like, if you're a people pleaser or you've struggled with it, I want to hear from you. And here's the thing: I've never met a people pleaser who came from a place of fullness. At the deep, like when we are truly talking and people just share things with me. So this has always been a life thing that people just share like their deepest things with me. And they would be like, I'm just so exhausted. And like, what about me? I just want to be seen. When will it be my time? When will someone care about me? When will I get what I want? Underlying every people pleaser that I've ever met, they desperately wanted to be seen or heard as well. And they were coming from a place of emptiness. And that people pleasing had an underlying tinge of bitterness and resentment, and the more it continued on in life, it like full-fledged bitterness and resentment took over.
Yeah, and I will say this: so this is what happens after this. Typically, this is not always not always women, but is a lot of women that do this. A good chunk of them, especially nurses and stuff like that. Not targeting you, but if you feel that way, cool. Like with this, it's like they go in, they empty their cup for so long, they end up in a place that cup is empty metaphorically for a long time. So guess what happens? It fills up eventually, but with a lot of bitterness and resentment. And if you say it's not, you're lying. But like a lot of bitterness and resentment. And then guess what? Unforgiveness too, which also results in spiritually like you having diseases like cancer and other things that pop up. Mm-hmm. And then you say you're just a good person and the victim of your circumstances, and then like you're just being a good godly wife or whatever that is, or mom, or even spouses will justify this. Oh, they're just a giver. They're just a caretaker. They're just a good mom. They're just a good, like really showing up from a place of emptiness is a good mom.
Yeah. And we're gonna have to dive into this like a whole lot deeper.
Yeah. But what happens is they end up in a space to where they eventually get, not everybody, but a lot of people eventually get fed up with it and they hit a mental breakdown and they're like, I'm going to do me now. It's time to focus on me now. I got to find out who I am. And the problem is they lost themselves in the role of wife and mom or caretaker.
Mm-hmm. And caretaker, because like it's important to know that it's not only mom or only wife. It could be caretaker too. So they're all, it's like just for everyone else. And so we'll dive into like this a whole lot deeper on another episode. But I want to point out, Tommy, that a couple of the things where like they need approval and they kind of resent people silently. And I'm pretty sure that some of the first things we started with about a narcissist was they were self-centered and they needed approval and that external validation, which is the same thing that people pleasers are doing, is getting external validation. So both are coming from a place of insecure. They don't have their own self-worth. They're using other people for getting that. And so you can see how really people can be classified into a lot of these sorts of things. Yeah. And it's coming all from like a place of not being healthy. Like they're not healthy individuals. And while it may not have been your fault that you weren't taught, it is your responsibility to fix it. And you should most certainly have the desire to cleanse your bloodline of these things so that you don't continue to pass it on. And there is a spiritual ramification to every single one of these that can put curses into the bloodline. So you should want to fix those.
Well, it's idols and altars being built. That's a whole nother topic. But like regardless, either way, like the real issue here is none of these things are real. And I'm about to trigger a lot of people by saying that one statement because I just invalidated all of your stuff, right? And yes, even so-called professionals, counselors,
massive air quotes around this.
Yeah, professionals that can tell you what to do based off page 5 or 6 or 7, paragraph 2, section 3 on their degree. When they haven't ever actually been through it themselves, it's a whole nother topic we got to go into. But you can tell I don't like counseling. I don't have an issue with counselors, like the people. I love all people, but I don't like the methods behind it. Yeah. It's useless.
And I just want to hit on that because some of the counselors are some of the sweetest people. They've gone through trauma. They've gone through, and so they have a heart. Their heart is to help other people. But the problem is like they haven't been taught how to heal, and so it comes into like the talk therapy and just a lot of these just like talk about it and never actually fixing the deep rooted beliefs. And so we have to address the deep rooted beliefs, because when you throw a label onto something, it's a cop out. It's just give the brain a temporary relief of, that's the answer. Therefore, and if you notice, like labeling all of those things takes the responsibility off of you. Like it's like, they're the problem. They're the issue. They're the one who has to change things. And it's like, no, like that's the problem, is like our society is on this huge kick of it's everybody else and, or just do what makes you happy. And that's not scripturally facts.
Yeah, it's a justification. Literally a label is a way for the counselor, professional, the expert, whatever, to avoid accountability and responsibility of basically just saying, I don't know how to help you or your partner. Hey, we do. If you want real help, come over here, by the way. But like when it comes down to it, like that's the way. And then it takes responsibility off you because it justifies your situation, makes you a victim of your situation, makes you feel better and gets you to leave. And what does the enemy want? Lack of unity. What does he want? Separation in marriages. What is the number one goal for the enemy aside from separation from God? The second one. Number one goal is separation from God. The second thing is for marriages to be destroyed.
Yes.
That is his primary objective, because he does, think about it. A marriage gets destroyed. It doesn't just affect like, it's like a group buy one, get 10 free, whatever, how many kids you have. But some people have a lot.
And
but
then
like,
the grandkids.
yeah.
And then, so it is multiple, like it's generations.
It's generational trauma and bondage that gets set in place through curses and so many different things.
You get generations.
It's not just you or your family. Kids aren't resilient. I hate to tell you that too. They're not.
Yeah, they're not.
That's why all of you listening to this have issues.
Things from childhood for sure play out. And so like, let's talk about like where we are now and how to overcome this, because I have to clarify, like, Tommy is not a narcissist. He's not controlling, manipulative, abusive, anything of those labels, right? He's not a sex addict. Like, I'm not either. And I'm not abusive on any level. I am not a people pleaser. I am not codependent. I am not narcissist. I'm not bipolar. Yeah. Any of the labels that we had been labeled, we are no longer. What happens is, especially in that heightened hell on earth, when you feel like your whole world is being ripped apart and you're going to lose your family and you're going to lose, which most people have their identity attached to their spouse or their family. And so they're at stake at legit losing everything in their mind, because that's even where their identity has been placed. So when you're in that state that you think everything in the world is going to be lost and come crashing down, you do erratic behavior to try and keep things safe, which can also play out into all of those labels as well. And so Tommy and I do not exhibit any of these. Like, we are not any of them. We are not on any kind of medication whatsoever. That Tommy is also not ADD anymore. And he, that's gone, that's healed. He's not anxious. He's not depressed. Like that, those things don't have a hold of this household either. And like, these are all things that we've seen our clients healed from as well. Like, they don't carry these things into their marriage. Like, even the liar one, which one is that? The compulsive liar.
Yeah, there's so many different labels.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm trying to think of, because that one's really common too. Like, well, they're just a compulsive liar. They'll never tell the truth. But by the way, that was me as well.
Also me.
I was terrified of telling the truth. And then I got so confused on all the lies that I didn't know what the truth was. So then I would just lie because I'm like, I don't know what the truth is.
Which is pretty sure biblically true too.
Yeah. And so all of those, but like, and now, like, we don't lie. I'll straight tell you, and I'm not a gossiper. Like, I don't lie. Like, I don't do any of those things, and neither does he. We're not. Like, we were unhealthy people, and we were doing coping mechanisms, survival techniques. We were in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Most people don't even consider that fawn is one of those fear states, but that's where a lot of women are. A lot of those labels bleed into like being in that fawn state, but that's where people are surviving from.
Yeah. So like what it boils down to is this is the truth, and we're going to give you how to fix this. But like the truth of it is, people are unhealthy individuals or healthy individuals. And most of society, we're working on changing this, by the way. We have a lot of planned, and God has a lot he's doing with us, with affecting the world and stuff, which is great.
Raising up warriors.
But like the thing is don't look at it as labels. Like, what people are either unhealthy or healthy. And really what it is, realistically, is they're unhealthy captives in sin and demonic bondages and strongholds, which stronghold is a mind thing. And then you got demonic other like things. They're captives. And what does Isaiah 61 call us to do? Set the captives free, which is what we're doing. And so like you have captives over here and people that are in like bondage and strongholds, and like people that are in like, not just demonically, but I'm talking like mindset and like their minds, and people perish from lack of knowledge. What does the Bible say that? And so like people aren't bad. God does not create garbage. Never. He's never done it. He never will. I think, well, maybe roaches, maybe from that, but I think that's
people are not bad.
I think roaches are completely demonic. Personally, I think the devil created those. Like that was like a thing from Nephilim. But anyway, that's my theory. I would be not surprised if it was right. But like when it comes to like God, he does not create and mosquitoes. He does not create garbage. God is perfect. Jesus is perfect. He creates perfect people in his image that are not perfect. They're being perfected through Christ. They're not perfect yet. We're all sinful. But like the thing is like then you got healthy people, and that's really what it boils down to. Now, how you overcome this is, we're going to tell you that right now. So it's becoming a healthy individual first.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify when Tommy was talking about like God doesn't create crap, and I'm just going to call it out because there was a time that I wouldn't have wanted to hear it, but I needed to hear it, and I needed someone to be a truth teller in my life, that your spouse is not a bad person as who they are at the core. Some of their actions, some of their things that they have done, some of the things they have said are bad. Like those actions were bad, and we're not justifying behaviors. Some of the things that you've done are also bad too, and we're not justifying your behavior. We're not giving you an excuse to justify any of those things, and we're not demeaning and saying that the things that you've gone through don't matter, or that they don't hurt, or they haven't like really had an impact on you. We are not saying any of that, because we know they do. We know they hurt. We know those things have impact. But what we're telling you is that they don't have to define you. These labels are not truth of who a person is at the core. Like, that's not who that person is. It's not who you are, even if you've been labeled. Like, that's not who you are at the core. No. Now, you can choose to stay in actions that carry out those behaviors, and you can choose to act in those ways, but that's not who God designed you, and that's not who you are.
Yeah, so you could say like, well, what about the people that like are rapists or like murderers or, you know, Hitler or like all these people evil? No, they're not evil. They're not bad. They've done evil things. 100%.
Horrible, awful, detestable things.
Horrible, awful, detestable things. None of those things are okay.
Causing like massive generational negative consequences, and my heart breaks. Like, so we're not saying any of those were okay, or we're on those sides of those.
No, absolutely not. Someone's going to I swear, someone's going to like tweak that. But like, regardless, either way, what we're saying is like, even if you look at, for example, Hitler, and I'm not justifying anything he did, a lot of bad things, clearly. But like, if you look at his past, like his childhood, does that justify his actions? No, but like extremely abusive childhood. Like, and then you have like other people like, so like, then there's demonic stuff that comes into play here with like child molestation, all that stuff. But like, people try to label the people, the thing we're trying to get across here of all of this is you're looking at the wrong false problem.
Yes. That's the biggest thing. And you have to get to the deep, like rooted beliefs. And so to overcome this, it's about having the healthy foundations and being a healthy individual. And your focus can't be on like changing your spouse first and like changing your spouse. Like, no. Like your spouse like is a different person. So in our season, right, like I had to focus on me and what was in my control. And we're not saying do more, especially for the one who's already like doing pretty much everything. In fact, for that person, it's actually do less. Some people do need to do more. They need to get off their butt and take action. Yes, but there's also some people that are like, I'm already doing everything. And it's like you are, in the heart's in the right place, but you're doing the wrong things because you haven't been taught. And that's where I was on that one. And it's like you have to learn those, you have to unlearn, actually. It's all about the unlearning those survival patterns that you had been attached to. It's about unlearning who society has said you were and unlearning that identity to walk in God's given identity and who he's called you to be. In this way that you show up where you're emotionally regulated, that you have emotional intelligence, that you have emotional maturity. Huge things that are not taught in our society. There's, so many people that are reactive, and then like just carrying like their pain of their past, like, and they're living in survival. So the fight, flight, fawn, freeze, you see that in people's everyday behavior. I just go out and people watch, and I just see people in these states just going through the motions, and that's all survival. And we have to stop living on autopilot, actually come back into consciousness. And we do need to be plugged into the right community, because the devil's plan is division and isolation. He wants you to think you're the only one going through this, and you're not. So I'm going to go ahead and break that and bust that belief right there. You're not the only one going through what you're going through. You're not alone. I
promise you. And like, here's the thing, like I'm going to finish this out and we're almost done. But like, when it comes to this, like we did, and we'll go into another podcast on everything we tried to fix it. Well, at different times individually and then together too. But we spent over $150K in debt in 8 years trying to figure out how to fix our marriage. Like on everything out there, from counselors, therapists, webinars, intensives, like so many, I could just keep going. Like so many different things. And the people aren't bad people. There's no bad people, remember? It's just those people, their methods had holes in them. The methods were garbage. And so with that, here's what you have to do. You have to first become a healthy individual. People make the mistake of trying to work on the marriage first. No, wrong. You will fail it. If you've already done that, you know what I'm talking about. You cannot work on the marriage first. You have to become healthy individuals first, which goes back to like why we create our NeuroGenesis Protocol, neuroscience combined with biblical renewal. You have to be able to actually like work on the deep-rooted beliefs, reprogram who you are, work on your identity, work on your mindsets, dismantle strongholds, get deliverance in the right things or spiritually, like in all the right areas, like heal the soul, meaning the mind, will, emotions, and intellect, reshape your identity, but also live it out, which is two different things. Yeah, you have to build healthy foundations in your marriage after that and have the right conversations the right way, and then build a healthy culture in your home and set the foundations and unity moving forward. Also make sure that everything you learn in the right way, you have to get to like the actual, like the level at which it needs to be reprogrammed, which is not just tools and tactics. Like if we were just to give you all of our tools right now for free, like you go to below and download them, they're not there. Don't look for them, but I wouldn't do that. But like all it's going to do, you're going to fail. And our tools, in my opinion, are the best. I'm biased, but like whatever, like it's one of those things, they would be useless. At the end of the day, you may experience a high out of like your low, but like you're no different. So in order to have more, you have to become more. And so the problem is most people do more to have more, but you have to become more first. Myron Golden is really popular for coining this, and I'm pretty sure there was somebody else before that called God that did this in Genesis. But like when it comes down to it, like you have all these different things, like with like you have to reprogram things on a key deep rooted level. That means your subconscious, which is 95% of your brain, 5% of that being conscious. You can't outwork 95% of your brain. That's literally like having like a tug of war with 95 people on one end and 5 people on the other. Unless one of them's Jesus or Superman, you're not going to win. So like when it comes down to it, you have to reprogram. You will not ever, especially for the high achievers listening, you will never be able to outwork and do more to reprogram things. Never. You have to reprogram, and you have to reprogram your identity, and you have to install everything on those 2 key levels for it to be permanent, and then have the right systems in place, tools, processes, things like that to make sure this stays permanent in your life as a lifestyle, not like a temporary fix.
Yeah, we are not about a temporary fix whatsoever. We are all about that lifestyle change, where this is about like shifting your life and walking in something that's completely different. We don't teach people how to live in survival. We don't teach people to survive or to stay in bondage. We are all about breaking free, changing, like rerouting everything, like getting to the root to create the life that you were supposed to be walking on. Like we want permanent, real fix and foundation that's going to change your life for the good and the direction that God's called you to be. And that's going to have ripple effects into not only your own future generations, but into the world, into the community. This is a season for like God is working. There is a lot of things going on in our world, and God is coming. There's a lot of spiritual things going on, and just to bring up warriors. Like this is a time that it's really important for us to like equip and have people who are awakened and no longer asleep and just going through the motions. And so it takes, these sort, like Tommy just how to do it. Like, we have to get to those root things, but we have to wake up. We have to have a humble spirit. I had such a pride. What's funny, because I was like, Tommy's so narcissist, which is all prideful, but like my pride was like, I'm the good one. I'm the one who's doing everything. You're the problem, which was pride. And I had to lay that down and lay the pride down and have that humble spirit and be like, all right, so what can I do? Because no, there is not a person listening to this that is a victim in a state of like, that's who you are. You might have been victim of a circumstance or a situation, but a victim is not your identity, and a victim is not where you stay. There is actions you take, and whatever happened to you may not have been your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal and overcome.
Yeah, I mean, here's the truth. I want to give you hope. If your marriage is actually like in trouble, which if you're listening to this, probably. So like, here's the thing. Like we've been through everything bad in marriage, quadruple times over. We've helped 500 plus clients around the world. So if you found this valuable, like definitely drop a comment down below and let us know like what you were labeled or also who labeled you and what it was, right? But like, if you want help, like just reach out to us. Like there's show notes. You can book a call with us, whatever. But like the thing is like that when it comes down to it, like your marriage most likely, like, and I say most likely because I'm like 99.99% sure it can be saved, right? And we have a 98% success rate with what we do, with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people.
And we want to give you that encouragement and that hope that things can be fixed. So no matter what the label, no matter what the situation, we want to give you that hope. And I believe that, my personal opinion after going through hell on earth with Tommy, if Tommy can change, there's hope for anyone, is like how I really feel, right? But it's that, if honestly, if we both can change and we can break all of these patterns, all of these labels, and have a healthy marriage, there is legit hope for you. Okay. When I have had several of my women message me this week and just be like, because your marriage affects every area of your life. And I've had so many of my women message me this week and be like, oh, I'm feeling so much more creative. I'm really enjoying being present at this. My work is taking off because I'm able to focus. They're like, it's weird not being consumed by my marriage and marriage problems. Like, they're like, my marriage is good. They're like, we're good. And I'm like, I know. I'm like, I love
enjoy
this.
life.
It's great when you're no longer just engulfed in marriage problems and, it's tearing you apart in like every direction. It affects your entire life when your marriage is in trouble. And, so having these women message me these, I'm like, yes, like those are my favorite messages. So there is hope for you.
But as always, we love you.
Yes.
God loves you more than you'll ever know, even if you don't believe it. And the truth is, none of us deserve what God has done for us, but he wants the best for us. And so we will see you on the next podcast episode. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.